the Great Martyr, Triumphator, the Miracle Worker. A martyred soldier in ancient Rome who later became a patron saint of many countries, territories, and professions all around the world. One of the 14 holy helpers venerated in Roman Catholicism. Who truly was this soldier on a white horse fighting with a dragon that is said that was slain by him? Was St. George only a prettified character without any documented historical background, or was he sent by God to be born in a Christian family with a much greater intention? St. George is truly a very important character of the legendary material in Christian hagiography. His origin is ambiguous and we don't even know for 100% where were his parents from. St. George or George of Lydda is being venerated in about 7 religions and churches worldwide. I'm asking, why? Since the beginning of time, our planet has been inhabited by persons who are admired for having done something very brave or having achieved something great, often called heroes. They have become an inspiration for many authors, writers, and artists who present them as characters admired by people all around the world. But these heroes of art often originate in some remarkable men and women, who are frequently overshadowed by their art analogues. Was St. George someone greater than just a Roman soldier? Who were they? Were they sent by God? What message did they leave behind? Where is the place of their eternal rest? Why are they venerated by millions of people all over the globe? Louis J.C. presents Unknown Heroes. St. George. Cappadocia, the historical region in central Anatolia, contemporary Turkey. The majority of sources say that a little boy was between the years of 270 and 280 AD born here. This little boy is nowadays known as St. George, or also George of Lydda. According to the legends, he was born in a Christian family of a Cappadocian or Persian commissioned officer in the Roman army, and a woman about whom we know too little. The mother of St. George allegedly came from the city of Lod in Israel, or Lydia, the present-day area of the Turkish cities of Izmir and Manisa. The word that causes divisions here is the name of the city of Lydda. Lydda is an old name of the Israeli city of Lod. This is very similar to the name of an Iron Age kingdom of Western Asia Minor called Lydia. Most likely, however, the place of origin of St. George's mother is Lydia, the ancient state. Although Lod, Lydda will often appear in the story of St. George. Throughout history, we cannot find any historical documents about the life of St. George. Despite this fact, two major sources also prove the existence of this man. What are we talking about is the Greek and the Latin version of the legend about his life. The Greek one is the older one, dating back to the year of 600.
Later in the 6th century, the Latin version appears.
They both differ in some information from each other. I'd say that today's historical knowledge we have relies more on the Greek version, although it might be a combination of both.
The character of St. George is important and emerges in the legendary material in Christian hagiography.
Despite that, it is hard to put a comprehensive aggregate of the information about his life. But what made him famous is the well-known legend about St. George and the dragon.
Initially, the story was talked throughout the Near East and brought to the West by the returning Crusaders. In Europe, it was adapted to the ideas of medieval knighthood.
And now, this is what the actual legend tells us of.
A dragon built a nest at the source supplying the city of Cyrene in Libya, or the city of Lydia, depending on the source. The inhabitants had to lure the dragon out of the nest for a while every day because of the water. The human sacrifice designated by the lot was the bait. When the lot fell on the king's daughter, the desperate king pleaded in vain for mercy. The princess was presented to the dragon. At the right moment, St. George, just passing by, stood up to the dragon, killed him, and rescued the princess. Grateful citizens renounced paganism and embraced Christianity. This legend was a part of a collection of hagiographies by Jacobus de Voragine, assembled around the year of 1260.
There are some interestingnesses about this story. One of them is, for example, that the lance with which St. George reportedly slew the dragon is called Ascalon. The name is based on the Israeli city of Ashkelon that witnessed the victory of the participants of the First Crusade.
In the year 1099, the Crusaders won there a battle against the army of Muslims. The lance of St. George, by its name, immortalizes this story. According to one tradition, St. George was married to the princess he had saved from the dragon.
The story of killing a dragon is ancient, and its roots are to be found among the Indo-European tribes that penetrated from the Central Asian steppes to India, Greece, and Western Europe, where they dispersed.
You can find it in the myths of the ancient Middle East, the Hittites, for example, ancient India, Greece, and in the traditions of the Germanic peoples.
In the Greek mythology, we can find the parallels in the story of Perseus and Andromeda, or in the one where Zeus kills a monstrous serpentine giant called Typhon. For example, the American writer Herman Melville expresses in his work Moby Dick that the legend of the struggle of St. George and the dragon and the legend of Perseus and Andromeda originated in whaling. Thanks to this story, the saved princess became the symbol of the Swedish kingdom and the dragon the symbol of the enemy's armies. Also, sculptures of St. George fighting with a dragon can be found in Stockholm. Against that Libyan city of Cyrene, where the fight repeatedly took place, cannot be found on any maps. The dragon that George slew was most likely a symbol of paganism. The legend itself refers to this fact. But how does this fit in the life of St. George? The answer is that we actually don't know when did it happen at all. But what we do know, on the other hand, is that it truly emphasizes the valiance and bravery he had. It was the courageous and virtuous deeds that made George famous. During his life, he became a bodyguard of a powerful emperor.
This emperor was none other than Diocletian, who ruled and reorganized the Roman Empire from November 284 until May 305.
The empire reorganized by him remained until 395. However, the circumstances of the death of George of Cappadocia are dark and cruel. In the year of 303, Diocletian launched the edicts allowing the persecution of Christians. Since he was Diocletian's bodyguard, he was supposed to be one of those to persecute the followers of Christ, but he confessed to Christianity and was subsequently tortured for it.
Later, the Roman authorities ordered his execution. According to the popular traditions, he passed away before the walls of Nicomedia, an ancient Greek city in Turkey. It happened on April 23, 303, in the ancient region of Bithynia in the Roman Empire. His dead body was supposedly transferred to the Israeli city of Lod, where his early cult was localized.
The date of his alleged death, April 23rd, later became the feast St. George's Day. On the whole, we know 2 more feasts of St. George. The 6th of May in the Gregorian calendar, when the Julian date is observed, and the 23rd of Parmuti, or the 1st of May, in the Coptic calendar. This 3rd century hero, St. George, didn't die forever after all. Because of his acts of heroism and devotion to God and Christ, he became the patron saint of many countries, territories, cities, and professions.
Under his patronage, he has the countries of England, Montenegro, Ethiopia, Lithuania, Portugal, Canada, Serbia, Greece, the Spanish autonomous communities of Aragon and Catalonia, the cities of Beirut, Freiburg im Breisgau, Genoa, Moscow, Barcelona, Istanbul, London, Ljubljana, and Vysoké Mýto. He's also the patron saint against temptations, war dangers, peasants, soldiers, and even scouting.
That last thing is why I'm so familiar with St. George, since I'm a Boy Scout myself. In Scouting, he's considered our patron, and therefore a huge celebration of him is being organized every 2 years in eastern Slovakia. The last time I took part in that was back in 2018. Here you go. As you can see, this legendary dragon slayer is well liked amongst many fellowships. St. George is also venerated in many churches and religions around the world, including the Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Oriental Orthodox Churches, the Church of the East, the Anglican Communion, Lutheranism, and even a syncretic Afro-Brazilian religion called Umbanda.
His major shrines are, for example, the Church of St. George in Lod, Israel, the magnificent St. George's Foreign Church in Edapally, India, the St. George Orthodox Church in Puthupally, India, or the St. George's Basilica in Prague, Czechia.
As you can see, this excellent respect for St. George has been developing over many centuries.
The cult of St. George was very popular in the Eastern Orthodox Church. An unknown author of this icon around 1150 is the artist of the Novgorod school.
One of the men who intensified this cult was Edward III of England. He was a famous English sovereign in the 14th century. His son, Edward the Black Prince, only 16 at that time, also fought in the significant Battle of Crécy in the year of 1346.
According to one description, he was knocked down in a skirmish and saved from captivity by Sir Richard Fitzsimon.
This is just one of the many heroic deeds of the Middle Ages that most likely influenced Edward III of England, the father of Edward the Black Prince.
During the reign of Edward III of England, the cult of St. George began to cultivate in bulk. George was originally a saint of the Eastern Church. Edward III of England ordained St. George as the patron saint of his fellowship of the Knights of the Order of the Garter. This illustration is from the 15th century.
Another important founder of the cult of St. George was Robert II, Count of Flanders. He played an important role in establishing the cult of St. George in Europe because he took with him a rare relic, supposedly the hand of St. George, which was given to him by the Emperor Alexius. Robert donated it to the Abbey Monastery Church in Anchin, Flanders, now France, which became a pilgrimage site.
This is the artistic notion from the First Crusade of handing over the prey to Jerusalem by Robert II, Count of Flanders, and Godfrey of Bouillon, acquired by the city of Ashkelon. Latakia in Syria was also conquered by Robert II, Count of Flanders, and Raymond IV, Count of Toulouse, in 1099. It became an important dependency of the Principality of Antioch.
St. George, however, was not the only patron saint in war. We know more of saints as knights warriors.
James the Great is the patron saint of Spain. He's shown with Jude the Apostle and Simon the Zealot. All three of them belonged to the 12 apostles of Christ.
Many knights also regarded victories in battles as proof of the real protection of their patrons.
Weakened by hunger but strong in faith, the Crusaders defeated a large army at Antioch. This incredible victory was attributed to the saints who fought on their side.
Turkish Antioch was an important place in the Middle Ages, not only for the Crusaders.
What are we looking at right now is the front of the cave that the Crusaders built in Antioch in the belief that between the years 40 and 50 AD, it was used by Saint Peter and his followers as the oldest place of Christian worship. Also, Saint Andrew, the patron saint of Scotland, is associated with many combat actions.
In the Gospel according to John, there was Saint Andrew, originally a disciple of John the Baptist. Another story that might have been an inspiration for the story of St. George's lance, in this case, tells us about the soldiers that fell on their knees with awe when Peter Bartholomew, the alleged finder of it, stepped forward with a holy lance. A lance that pierced Christ's side on the cross. The illustration comes from the publication of The History of Deeds Done Beyond the Sea by William Tyre, which was made for King Edward IV of England. In my opinion, the overall story and seriousness around the lance of St. George is based on the Holy Spear, the one that pierced Jesus' side, and its effect on the Crusaders.
In the Gospel according to John, the soldier reportedly pierced Christ's side with a spear instead of breaking his feet, which was the usual practice of crucifixion. George embodies the Church and all the knights who appreciate that he protects innocence in the form of a princess. This fresco is from around 1350 from Verona, Italy.
Ultimately, it is more than certain that the legend of St. George still lives. Whether the Latin or the Greek version, both describe the devoted and honest life of this brave saint. Despite the still living historicity debate among many historians, laymen, archaeologists, theologians, and other branches, finding the complete truth about this person is very challenging. The story of St. George and the dragon bears a real thought of truth.
Be brave and never be ashamed of your faith.
Although the Muslim legends tell about St. George quite different things. His veneration in the Levant and also in the Muslim world says about his true significance. Being worshipped by both Christians and Muslims, several days throughout the year were chosen just as his feasts. Since I'm a Boy Scout myself and St. George is also the patron saint of scouting, he inspires me a lot. He truly embodies all the ideals of scouting. George of Lydda was also an inspiration for some famous arms and flags, especially the St. George's Cross. You can find flags either from history or today. Whether St. George looked exactly as he's depicted on various paintings, models, or icons, we do not know exactly. However, it is precisely these works of art that can give us a better understanding of who this extraordinary man was. Yes, St. George was truly extraordinary. It was indeed God who sent this bold saint to testify with his life the real truth. The truth that Jesus Christ is our best and most faithful friend at all times. It may sound strange, but Jesus stood by George even and at the moment when he decided to lay down his life for him. He wanted to show us that in no way should we be ashamed of our faith, because if things are right, it will always come back to us. My question for you guys is, has there ever been a situation in your life when you felt brave? I'm looking forward to your answers down in the comments. I would also like to hear your feedback on this documentary. It was probably my most demanding project so far in all aspects, but eventually I found out that with prayer and devotion to God, even the hardest tasks can be completed. I firmly hope that you have learned a lot of new things, not only about the life of St. George, but especially that you like this kind of film. There will be one more episode of this series for now, so you can guess the next saint down in the comments. That is everything for me for now. Stay safe, stay faithful, don't forget to pray, and God bless you. Bye!